Thanks for tuning in. You came back. Awesome to see you. Welcome to Hell in a Hallway with your host, Billy. I want to, today's interesting episode as we talk about relationships. And we'll talk about the acquisition of relationships. Like, how do we, like, who are we meeting? Why are we meeting them? What's going on, right? Especially during this quarantine time. And I talked to a few of my clients and different things that they're going through, and they're telling me their stories, and some of them really great, some of them really awful. However, there's a question that I asked, right? Are you casting a wide net, or are you using a fishing pole? Now, here's the thing. I wish I can take credit for that, and that's not my statement. A friend of mine had said it once to me, and I was like, wow, that's a really fascinating idea to look at it. And so let's talk about casting wide nets and utilizing a fishing pole, right? So if you're casting a wide net out in the ocean and you're looking specifically for tuna, let's say that's all you want, right? Well, it's not like tuna's the only thing that's going to be attracted to that net. Everything's going to come in that net, right? So, trash, tires, old tennis shoes, and a host of other fishes. Maybe a lot of shellfish, a lot of stuff you're allergic to, just stuff you don't want, right? So, all that's going to come into your net. But when you're using a fishing pole, you use a lure that's specific to what you're trying to catch, right? So listen, all you fishermen enthusiasts, I get it wrong. Please accept my apology ahead of time because I don't fish like that. So, but the point is that one requires a little degree of patience, right? The idea of utilizing a fishing pole requires patience. It requires, number one, knowing what you want. What is it that you want from a person? What do you need from them? What do you want from them? What are your non-negotiables, which is really important to have? And the reason why it's really important to have, because later on, you're going to find that you're going to compromise your non-negotiable. That's going to be an argument later, a split later, a fight. This is all the stuff you knew ahead of time, okay? So number one, know what you want, know your non-negotiables. Number two, can you deliver on the things that you want? It is so important to know that you can provide the very thing that you're asking for, right? So it's important to know that if you're looking for an individual who has confidence, then you should have confidence as well. If you're looking for an individual who has a degree of intellect, right? And that can have many different definitions, by the way, then make sure that you can provide the same thing, right? If you're looking for an individual who likes to go have fun, who likes to go out, who likes to do things, make sure that you're willing to provide that as well. If you're looking for somebody who shares religious beliefs with you, make sure that that's something that you're into just as much as they are, right? Unless you're the person who is okay with saying, hey, I can train them up. And I don't mean that in any derogatory sense of the word, but there are some individuals who are not willing to say, that's not what they have. It's cool. That's not on my non-negotiable. That's on my, that's on the guidelines. Guidelines can be maneuvered and are flexible. Policies, not so much. So if you're considering something a guideline rather a non-negotiable, then okay, you can flex on it, right? Also kind of recognize when we are casting wide nets, we're going to get a huge amount of individuals that we don't want to have, right? And it's an easier process, right? Because you're just throwing anything out there and see what happens, right? But the problem is you lose something very valuable. We're getting somebody to join in on this. You're losing time. You're going to lose time. You're going to waste time on individuals who you know full well does not even have the basic requirements of what you're looking to get from them. So it's so important that you pay attention to not utilizing a wide net and you utilize a fishing pole. Again, the fishing pole requires diligence, patience, perseverance. It really does. But if you're looking for, like, let's say a life partner or a spouse, someone you're going to spend, a huge amount of time with, you want somebody, you want to take time. Like, think about the research you do when you buy a car, right? I hope you spend time looking up reviews, paying attention, reading about them. We spend a lot of time when we're trying to buy a high-end product such as a car or a house, or we're discovering what kind of loan is the best loan to have, and does that fit my lifestyle, things of that nature. You want to do the same thing when it comes to your mate, right? If you have a non-negotiable and you compromise on that, you're going to pay for that. There's a lady who I was working with. Her non-negotiable was children. She didn't want any. She was dead serious about not having children. And the guy, she ended up really liking him. He ended up having children. She was like, I can get through it, Billy. I can do it. Turns out she really couldn't do it. She began to resent the child, and it's not the child's fault, right? She recognized that, wow, I broke on my non-negotiable. And sometimes when you break on your non-negotiable, you are the one who paid the price. So it's important to recognize, hey, if that's a non-negotiable, that's the non-negotiable. Also, think about where your non-negotiables are coming from. A lot of times they come from a place of our personal values. Where do yours come from? What are your non-negotiables? And see if they actually make sense, right? My son was telling me, all women want guys who are over 6 feet. I mean, is that true? I don't know if that's true. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's a non-negotiable for people. Do I think that's a preference? That's different. That might be a preference. So a preference and a non-negotiable are not the same. There are things we prefer, but they're not considered non-negotiables, right? The other thing is, are you ready? Number 3, I would say. Are you ready for a commitment? Are you really ready for that? Does your lifestyle allow for it? That's so important. Many a times we'll say we want something, and then our lifestyle really doesn't support it. For example, I really want a dog. And honestly, excuse me, honestly, I want a dog. It's called a Mexican hairless. That's really not its real name. That's the name I can pronounce. Let's go with that. I want that particular dog. It is gorgeous. And every now and then I think, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And then I'm like, who's going to walk that dog at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning? Am I going to feel like doing that? Am I going to really want to do that? Am I going to really want to train the animal? You know what I want? I want a dog I can pet and somebody else take care of. Like, that's what I want. And that's not what I'm going to get. So despite the fact that's something I want, that's not something I need in my life right now. My current life doesn't support it. So make sure that whatever it is you're trying to get into, that your current life can actually support that change. Number 4, make sure that you so I'm going to say this 2 different ways, right? Make sure you make yourself a priority and not an option when it comes to your new partnership. Because sometimes we give up everything, and that includes ourselves, and then we have low levels or high levels of resentment towards the other person because they're not reciprocating. Give that to yourself. Take care of you. Make yourself a priority. Now, on the flip side, I'm going to say the almost complete opposite. You guys, as couples or partners, whatever the term you're using, you need to make each other priorities if this is a relationship. But you get to define what priority look like. That's why there has to be a conversation. But people fear conversations. They're scared of those difficult conversations. They think they're going to run people away, and that's not the truth. You're being assertive. You're letting people ahead of time know how to treat you, right? So those are just simple boundaries. Those are what we're calling those boundaries. And if you want somebody who's not afraid of displaying their emotionality, then you have to make sure you're not afraid of doing so, right? So we will require vulnerability from another person, and yet we're not prepared to be just as vulnerable. So make sure that that's something that you're willing to give as you're ready to receive as well. So those are a few things. So lastly, what I really want to be able to say, especially as it pertains to emotions. I had another friend of mine telling me that emotions are liars, right? And I sat with that for a moment and I said, I mean, is that true? Are emotions liars? I don't think so. Emotions are signals. Emotions tell us that something is wrong. Emotions are the check engine light of our spirits, of our souls, of our bodies. Emotions are that. Now, emotions may not be accurate into what we believe they're telling us what's wrong. But the fact that they're there isn't a liar. They're there because they're telling us, hey, check under the hood. Something doesn't feel right. Something isn't right. And see, whether or not that right or doesn't feel right is based on perceptions or observations. That's not the point. The point is feelings tell us that there's something is wrong. So when you are meeting someone for the first time or meeting someone or getting to know them, and that check engine light comes on for you, you have some emotions, something gut instinct is telling you something's off, pay attention to that. Now, when I say pay attention to that, I don't mean reach back in your bag of trauma and say, yep, he is just like this, or yep, she is just like that. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, even if that shows up for you, that's still a check engine light. Not maybe him or her or them, but for you, you know. So make sure that you pay close attention of what's happening in your own emotionality, right? And make sure that you don't pick up the baggage from a previous relationship and carry it into your current one. That's one thing a lot of my clients are talking about, how the baggage from their previous relationships is showing up in the potential new ones that they have. And so we're quick to tell people, hey, don't pick up your baggage. You better leave that baggage where it was. Well, here's the thing. I think that's half true. I think you don't leave it. I think you unpack it and find out what's in that bag, you know, because that is your bag. You know, now we do have a habit of picking up other people's bag and carrying them with us and then martyr ourselves for doing so. Well, don't do that, because that's your fault. You have to figure out what's going on with you and why you tend to pick up other people's issues. But as it pertains to you, open that bag. Find out the contents of your past that's seeping into your present, because it would just poison any new thing you got going on. And here's the thing, it will seem so real to you. It will seem so real that that's what's happening, when in fact you are really looking out the lenses of yesterday's issue. So make sure that you unpack that bag. You know, I appreciate you tuning in today. I appreciate you talking with me a little bit about relationships and getting into new things and casting wide nets over having a fishing pole. Grab those fishing poles, folks. Now, you might be sitting out there for a minute, but grab those fishing poles and fall in love, connect with people, enjoy your life, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.